Als je bevrijd meer even on. Shalom Aleichem. Okay, so some of you knew actually traditionally when you say Shalom Aleichem, the answer should be Aleichem Shalom. Say it backwards, right? So we'll try again. Shalom Aleichem. That's right. So Shalom Aleichem is actually a Hebrew word, but Yiddish contains a lot of Hebrew. Yiddish is a mixture of several elements, as you may know. You probably know that there are several linguistic elements. Hebrew is an important part of it. The vocabulary is mainly Germanic in origin, but it's not directly from modern German. It's from a dialect of German called Middle High German from over 1,000 years ago, from the 10th century, when Jews began settling around the Rhineland in what is now Germany, coming from mostly the Mediterranean area, Spain and Italy in particular. They started settling there and began speaking the German dialect of the time, which was Middle High German. And they spoke it with their own accent of the time. Hard to know exactly how they sounded in those days. And they wrote down the new words they were learning as they heard or picked up the local dialect of German, or the precursor to German, and they wrote it in the Hebrew alphabet. So Yiddish from the very start, as it was beginning to become a unique language unto its own, was written in the Hebrew alphabet, differentiating it in that way from the German of its time at the outset. But it was pretty much the local German dialect at the start, just written in the Hebrew alphabet. So if you know how to read Hebrew, or at least you're probably familiar with it, it looks quite different from the Latin letters, the English alphabet, which is the Latin alphabet. So Yiddish became more of an independent language several centuries later when Jews began settling in the Slavic countries, Poland and other Slavic countries, Eastern Europe, Romania, what is now Bulgaria, Romania, and of course Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, they say in Yiddish, it's White Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, the major Jewish centers of culture, as the clusters of populations centered there, became Poland and Lithuania and the Ukraine. Those became the main clusters of Jewish population and Yiddish culture over the years. And also the dialects of Yiddish became more differentiated there. The main three dialects of Yiddish became the Polish, Ukrainian, and Litvish or Lithuanian dialects. Polish also is mainly known as Galiciano. You've heard that, right? You probably. So there are other Polish dialects of Yiddish, but Galiciano from southern Poland mainly, straddling the Ukraine also, and straddling what is now part of Austria and Hungary, because borders kept changing, but that was all Galicia. So that's the Galiciano dialect, became a major dialect. And there was Litvish, Lithuanian dialect, and Ukrainish, or the Ukrainian dialect. Anyway, today what we're doing is celebrating Yiddish together. I want to review a little bit about the history, in case you didn't know, or even if you do, of the Yiddish language. Very rich language and cultural heritage. And we're going to have some fun too, because I have a couple of very special partners, puppet partners, who are going to help talk about Yiddish as well. Talk to you in Yiddish a little bit, and have a little conversations, and maybe teach you a few basic expressions and words that are fun, whether or not you already know them. So, wie viel von euch verstehen, was ich sage? Jetzt, hebt auf der Hand, seid ihr so gut. Ob ihr versteht, was ich sage. Erst mal halb von dem Eulen. Maybe half of the audience approximately. Anerach means approximately. I just asked everybody, for those who didn't understand, to raise your hand if you understand what I'm saying. So that gave me a good idea. Okay, well, hot nit kein moira. What does that mean? Don't be afraid. I won't speak Yiddish most of the time. We're going to celebrate Yiddish, but we're going to talk about Yiddish, and I will illustrate a lot of Yiddish words and expressions. And what? Okay, so, but most of the time we'll be doing that primarily in English. So, and now this program developed from an annual event about reading club. I forgot what it's called now. You probably know. Maybe some of you know, on Long Island. And this year, every year they choose a different topic. It was Holocaust topic, the book that they chose, that name slips my mind. The Lost Wife, that's it. It's a Holocaust theme. I haven't read the book myself, but it developed out of that libraries are looking for some kind of associated program, and it was determined that this program that I offer, combining various knowledge and talents that I have, would be appropriate. Of course, something specifically about the Holocaust is something different, because this is not a program about the Holocaust. There's a definite link here, though, because in celebrating Yiddish together and having fun, we also are commemorating the fact that the vast majority of the Jews who died in the Holocaust were Yiddish speakers. That was their language. So it's, I think, a great mitzvah to help in what little ways we can to help revive the language Yiddish and the culture connected with it. That was the primary language of Jews throughout Eastern Europe for several hundred years. The Holocaust, of course, was a horrible blow not only to the people, but to the language and the culture of Yiddish. There were other factors, though, that were contributing to the demise of Yiddish, beginning around 100 years ago, turn of the 19th, 20th centuries, which was, of course, assimilation, natural progress. But Jews assimilating, they begin speaking whatever local language of the country, and very often, usually at the expense of Yiddish, which had been their native language. And then there was other types of persecution, of course, in the Soviet Union. Stalin, of course, also killed, they had a purge of Jews, Jewish writers and intellectuals, which killed many thousands of them, including some of the great Yiddish playwrights and authors. And of course, under his reign, there was suppression of religion, and by the same token, the culture associated with religion, so Yiddish was stifled in those years under Stalin. So of course that was another big blow to Yiddish. So several blows resulted in the fact that Yiddish is nowhere near what it used to be as a spoken language, but there is still hope, because a lot of people are learning Yiddish in universities. I learned Yiddish in Queens College, part of CUNY, many, many years ago. I was a Yiddish major. I have a degree in Yiddish language and literature. I know some Yiddish from home, too, from a Yiddish Sunday school, Azutik Shula, Yiddish Shula, that my parents sent me to. So I had a taste of it from my grandmother. I learned a little Yiddish, too. But I mainly studied it very intensively, and have since then taught many Yiddish classes, both for children and adults. I've done Yiddish translating as well. And so that's something very dear to me, very near and dear to me, is the Yiddish language. A very rich language, as I began to say a few minutes ago. For one thing, a combination of different linguistic sources. The bulk of the vocabulary still is Germanic in origin, but of course with some different grammatical rules than in modern German, and pronunciations. And there's also a Slavic element, a number of Slavic words which were added to Yiddish, incorporated into the language as the Jews settled in the East European countries. And from the start, there were a number of Hebrew words. Now the Hebrew words, of course, logically, you'd probably guess that anything that had to do with religion, Jewish religion, tends to be used, the Hebrew words tend to be used for those. And also words of ritual, and words of, I say, deep thinking and stuff, things along that lines come from Hebrew. And some words, it's hard to know exactly why, but they just enter the language as a natural course. So the Hebrew element, for example, words like different concepts, the fact, the word concept itself, hasoga, that's a Hebrew word, it means concept. And then sholem and milchoma, right? It means what? Peace and war, right? Both of these are all Hebrew words, but used in Yiddish. Mishpacha, things to do with family, a lot of that is from Hebrew. Mishpacha is family. It means it's usually used in the context of broader family, wider, like all the various relatives. And for that matter, kroivim, was means kroivim? What does that mean? Anybody know? Kroivim are relatives. Okay, so connect.